Australia decides, hashtag Australia has decided, and they are sending Kate Miller Heidke to Eurovision 2019. Should we talk about it?
Let's
Let's
do
do
this.
this.
Yes, zero gravity has risen to the top. You guys, this is not a surprise. The hype has been real for a while, and vocally, she absolutely nailed it. She is a trained classical singer, and that really showed. She worked registers that most singers could not. Even people within her professional space would be impressed by that performance, and she made it more appealing to people who perhaps aren't into opera by going popera, by taking us to the trance house club and still having that classical undertone. It's a hodgepodge of genres, but one that she makes work. It's all brought together by staging. There's a fine line between circus and Cirque du Soleil, and if you get your angles wrong, it becomes a freak show real quick. But I think they're within the realm that this can be pulled off. Loving the kind of metaphor, her dark past behind her swaying. She is in the light, the darkness is behind her. I see this going to the final, and I think if they get the staging right, it could do really well, but if they don't, it could be a disaster. And that makes this even more exciting, actually. Angus.
Yes, so I thought vocally this was fantastic. She sounded wonderful. I think with a song like Zero Gravity, it's really easy to see if there's a problem or a flaw, or if something is not going to work with this because there's so much going. But I really loved it. The studio cut I loved because it starts all Ellie Goulding-ish, which is where I really thought this was going, and then it bursts into the opera riffs, which I think has so much kind of potential to be explained visually. Like, I think staging that really lends itself to something huge and dramatic. For me, the staging in the national final was a bit too static. I think with a song that has kind of progression in it, it would be nice to get some kind of movement or some more from her. The scarecrow in the background I found a bit creepy and off-putting. I didn't really get that concept. In hindsight, understand it's her emotional turmoil. It puts me a little bit in mind of the swaying. It's like it's a really niche reference, but there's an episode of The Simpsons where they're doing a streetcar named Desire, and Marge Simpson is on like wires and being like thrown around in the sky of her emotional turmoil, and that's what it put me in the emotional on it. So that needs work, but her dress looked fantastic. She sounded amazing, and I love the studio cut and the vocal. It matched up to the studio cut. She sounded phenomenal. So I think this is a great choice for Australia. It's something new and different. It's not just another radio pop song, which they've done for the past kind of 4 years. And it's a different caliber. I think there's so much they could do with this. This is probably the best thing since Damien for me, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really good because it isn't a safe choice. There were safe choices that they had in this national selection, and they didn't go with them. Popra is something that we're seeing a lot more of at Eurovision. Over the last few years, we've had Jacques Hudek, we've had Elena Nechaeva, and now it's Kate. I wasn't a big fan of Zero Gravity going into this. It was probably like my number 5 or 6 in the selection. It still wasn't my favorite tonight, definitely, but I think for the first time it kind of clicked with me, and that's because when she explained the meaning of the song and it does piece together the performance. I just think there's so much going on. It's gimmickry upon gimmickry at the moment, and it doesn't need that. Kate Miller Heidke, if you listen to her back catalogue, you've got songs like Caught in the Crowd, Sarah, like these really amazing emotional songs, and they tell a story, and I love that side of her, and the song has that. But at the moment, the best way of describing it is Popra star with the Statue of Liberty's headdress is 20 feet high up in a dress with a cast member from Wicked / Cirque du Soleil kind of leaning over, leering behind her. It's unnecessary. She is so good. She doesn't need that. I think, the Coco Chanel thing that you always say, well, take something off before you leave. Take about 10 things off this. It doesn't need it. In the interview with Sebastian, she said this wasn't the first dress. I kind of worry what else was meant to be happening if there was something more, because it didn't need it. Yeah, I think if they pare it back, this could do well at Eurovision. I see it qualifying easily, but I don't see it as a top five. And I don't really see it troubling it at the moment. So it's a good choice, and I love her, can't wait to meet her, but just right now, I'm not confident that it's going to give Australia that win they clearly want.
Shout out to J.K. Rowling's legal team, who is probably sending a notice about the use of Dementors. Yeah, I think the Dementor outfit might need to be tweaked. It was a little Halloween. I felt like I was in Frozen. Elsa was on this giant ice cream cone, and in the background, you had the evil ghost spirit. Angus, are you there, honey? So if I have one piece of advice to help them get away from the, this feels like Frozen or Wicked, it's to get rid of the audience. Because at the point you can see the audience watching the circus, you feel like you're in a circus. But if you don't see the audience, you're in a different world. Kind of like Loreen, you're in this whole new setting, and you can embrace it much more strongly, eagerly, keenly. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm trying to... The Iceland performance 2016 at the national final, you didn't see the audience, it was amazing. Then in Stockholm, you saw the audience and the illusion is lost. So give us your story, your crazy, wacky story. Just make it a whole nother world.
Yeah, completely agree. I think this has so much like ethereal, otherworldly potential, but she has great kind of warmth and personability for the camera. Because that's the thing, I think the other thing with someone like Greta Salome or that was there wasn't really connection with the audience at home. Like it's very mystical Lord of the Rings. But if you can't get the people at home to connect with you, it's not necessarily going to appeal. So yeah, I think there's lots they can do with this. I just think tweak the staging a bit, and then it will match up with the studio cut.
Yeah, definitely. I think staging is going to be key here because again, it just felt a bit like Alina Nechaeva. We've seen this before. It felt like Aliona Moon. We've seen this before. I think it's such a powerful song, and she is such a powerful performer that you can do a lot more with this. But Australia gets staging right sometimes. Recently, the lazy Susan for Isaiah and whatever Jessica Malboy was doing haven't been great, but you look at Tonight again, and that was really, really well staged, particularly. And Dami Een even was really good. I know not everybody loves the holographic projection thing, Deb and Adarami, I think that there is potential here. If they get somebody in good to help with them with it, I could see this doing really well.
So let's quickly discuss the other acts. I've got to say, Electric Fields. My hat goes off to you. That is why it is not on my head. Zachariah clearly did not have the funds, the production behind him that Kate did. So in the Electric Fields performance, it's literally just Zachariah's headscarf, Zachariah, the other singer or musician's keyboard, and his leg. And they worked it. They absolutely worked it. You could put them in a cardboard box and they would still slay. Despite having nothing, they did what they could with what they had, and it was amazing. In terms of live performances, Electric Fields was my winner today. I think that you felt like you were at a concert. You felt really in it. Vocally, it was so on point. Whereas Kate was up there, but I just felt Electric Fields won the night. But they had the odds stacked against them. In the running order, they went second. Granted, you could vote from the beginning, but still. But my vote tonight would have gone to Electric Fields.
Yeah, I mean, I found it really interesting watching the national final performances because I think the acts that were really hyped by people before, like Sheppard, Electric Fields, I did not necessarily get in the studio cut version, but then live, I flipped around and was actually like, those are probably two of the strongest. It's not surprising, and actually Kate was the one that I was somewhat disappointed by the live performance piece. But yes, so if we think about the acts that were really hyped by fans, Electric Fields and Sheppard, the Sheppard song left me a bit cold on the studio cut, but I think on stage, that was the one that came alive and I actually thought was going to win. because something about it seems that was in keeping with the legacy of what Australia has sent to Eurovision prior to this date. That was the big radio hit. It had the big anthemic quality. And live, that elevated so much from what I thought was quite the generic studio cuts into something that was much more anthemic. And also the staging of that was fun. Like, they just had good chemistry, good rapport. The screen seemed, it's funny you talk about Kate and whether she was advantage over Electric Fields, because Sheppard, I thought, got the best kind of use of the screens. The Electric Fields as well, something about that song, 2000 and whatever, was so catchy and anthemic. And there was just a wild energy. Like, that, I think, probably was the other risky entry that Australia could have gone to, just in terms of how it would play to European audiences. But I thought really nice. Also, Courtney Act, I have to shout out, because I think when she was announced as competing, there were a few rolled eyes and kind of question marks, and like, we've seen drag queens do pop at Eurovision, what's going to be, but she took it seriously. That was a genuine bona fide banger, and I think staging wise, you know, this has shades of classic Kylie Minogue. There's all the dancers, like, very well realized, great vocal. So a really high standard around Kate, I thought, from the other acts. Like, if we think about the season so far, this is probably the best lineup in a show that we've had, overall quality-wise. Yeah, I thought the top 4 acts were all pretty outstanding.
Yeah, exactly the same. I was going to say the top 4 here were, I think, actually on the night, the best top 4 that there could have been. Electric Fields absolutely killed it. I mean, it was the fact it wasn't a perfect performance, but it didn't need to be, because it had that sort of joy and energy, and it just made you get engrossed in it. So even if, you know, Zachariah wasn't singing all the parts and he was holding the mic too far away, it felt raw and it had that emotion behind it. The fact he was using the Pitanyara, I can't remember the full name of the language, but that language, and they had the subtitles, it just really, really worked. I thought it was amazing. 100% the best song that I think will be left in a national final this year. Just really, really good. I'm really sorry that it isn't going, and I probably would have selected it over Kate in it overall, but you know, I still think Australia will do well, and I can see a great future for Electric Fields. I really hope that they either come back or that they drop an amazing album. The rest of their back catalogue is amazing. Sheppard kind of disappointed me a little bit on the night. To be honest, I loved On My Way was my favourite going in. But there was just some things like the girl, the member that was playing the guitar was not playing the guitar. Like, it was the laziest fake instrument playing I've ever seen. Like, she was kind of like going, like, just strumming one little bit of a bass, and it's like, no, that isn't that. Like, it just looks so fake and so a bit half-hearted. The exact opposite of Courtney Act, who worked every single bit of that stage, and I loved that. You know, vocally it wasn't perfect, but it didn't matter because it was fun, and that is a catchy song. I'm sorry, I really, really like Fight for Love. But yeah, I'm 100% in agreement. This was one of the best national finals we've seen in a very, very long time. The production was there, really, really on point.
Well, I guess the most positive outcome for me would be for Electric Fields to get a record label, come back next year, and absolutely slay. In any case, that's what we think. What do you think? Who is your favorite in Australia? Did you like the Australian selection? Are you loving Kate as much as we are? Let us know here on wiwibloggs.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel and use the comment box below to let us know your opinions about tonight's Australian acts.
And hit that like button, visit us on the website, and follow us on all of our social media. Everything down in the box.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.